Chances are you've used machine translation pretty recently, maybe to read a review for a product online or just to figure out a single sentence. It is literally everywhere, and it's getting so good. But as it gets better, it brings up a huge question for the pros who do this for a living. So in this breakdown, we're going to dig into the research to find out which it is. Is this amazing tech a translator's best new friend, or is it their biggest enemy? Let's get into it. To really understand this debate, we first have to talk about the new job that humans are taking on. See, it's not just about translating from a blank page anymore. There's a whole new skill in town that's become absolutely crucial.
And that skill is called post-editing. Now, as this definition from Sharon O'Brien's Handbook lays out, it's basically a special kind of editing. A professional translator gets the raw text that a machine spit out, and then they clean it up, fixing all the little errors in grammar, style, and meaning.
Now, post-editing isn't brand new, but it has absolutely exploded in the last few years. And that's all because of something called neural machine translation, or NMT. This is the AI magic behind tools like Google Translate. See, the old systems translated word by word, which was clunky. NMT looks at whole sentences at a time, which has made the output so much more fluent that editing it is now a totally normal and often required part of the job.
So this brings us to the central idea that everyone just assumes is true. If you're using the machine, you must be giving up some quality to get it done faster, right? Well, let's see if that assumption actually holds water.
This is the common wisdom, right? You do it by hand when you need something to be perfect, even if it takes forever. And you use machine translation with an editor, we'll call it MTP, when you just need it done fast and you're okay if it's not perfect. It seems to make sense. But is it really true? And this is where it gets really interesting. A researcher named Ignacio Garcia decided to actually put this idea to the test. He got a group of students training to be translators and gave them texts to work on in two different ways. Some had to translate from scratch, and others just had to post-edit what a machine gave them. And he measured everything, how long it took them and how good the final product was. First, let's talk about time. You would expect post-editing to be way faster, but the results were, well, kind of surprising. Check out the chart. The post-editors took about 35 minutes on average, while the manual translators took 38. So yeah, it's faster, but only by a little bit, about 8%. Not exactly the game-changing speed boost you might expect.
But here is the real shocker, the quality score. Everybody assumed the manual human-from-the-start translation would be better. Garcia's study found the exact opposite. On average, the post-edited translations scored higher for quality than the ones done from scratch. Just think about that for a second. It wasn't a trade-off. The translators who used the machine as a starting point produced slightly better work in slightly less time.
Okay, so if the quality can actually be better, you might be asking yourself, why do we even need the human editor then? Well, it's because even though the output sounds great, the machines are still making some very particular kinds of mistakes. Researcher Anne-Marie Laurian actually breaks down these typical machine screw-ups into three main buckets. First, you have mistakes with just single words, like picking the wrong one. Second, you get errors in how ideas relate to each other, like the machine misunderstands a cause and effect link. And third, you get these bigger structural problems where the information is just presented in a weird or confusing way. These are the little gremlins that the human post-editor has to hunt down.
And this is the real paradox of modern machine translation. As researcher Sharon O'Brien points out, because these new AI systems are so good at creating sentences that sound smooth and readable, the mistakes they make aren't obvious anymore. They can hide in plain sight. And that means a human editor's sharp, critical eye is more important than ever. All right, so this all leads to a really practical question. If this workflow isn't a silver bullet for everything, when should you use it? Well, the answer really depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Generally, there are two main ways to go. There's full post-editing, which is what we've been talking about. The goal here is perfection, to make the text so good that you'd never know a machine was involved. This is what you do for documents going out to the public. But then there's also rapid post-editing. Think of this as the good enough approach. The goal is just to make sure the text is understandable. You only fix the huge glaring errors, and you don't sweat the small stuff. It's perfect for when you just need to get the gist of an internal email or a document super fast.
So what makes a document a good candidate for this process? Well, the research points to a few key things. It works best with really structured technical language, like an instruction manual or a scientific report. It also does better with a neutral style, where the main goal is just to get information across. It's probably not the best tool for translating beautiful poetry or a clever marketing slogan that's full of puns.
And really, it all comes down to this one simple idea. The level of quality you need isn't some abstract concept, it's all defined by who's going to read it and what they need to get from it. As Laurian basically says, the only thing that matters is if the user is satisfied. That's the only benchmark.
So what does this all mean for the future? That whole human versus machine narrative? It just seems like the wrong way to look at this. The evidence is pointing to something completely different.
This quote from Sharon O'Brien really just nails it. The point isn't that AI is going to make translators obsolete, it's that it's changing their job description. All those core human skills, understanding language, culture, context, they're becoming even more valuable. They're just being used in a new way.
This is really the new reality of the job. We are moving into an era of collaboration. It's not just post-editing, it's a whole new way of thinking, machine-augmented human translation. It's a partnership where the machine does the heavy lifting to get a draft out, and that frees up the human expert to focus on the high-level stuff, the nuance, the creativity, and making sure the final text is absolutely perfect for its audience.
And this leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question to think about. Remember, Garcia's study was done with trainees. But if post-editing can, in the right situation, produce a higher quality result than translating from scratch, should this become the new default method for certain kinds of work? What do you think?